Hey everyone, this is the _SynchroGuy, and I'm here today to talk about the World Championship of Yu-Gi-Oh! That happened during this past weekend. And wow, was it amazing! Just glad to see it finally come back after so many years. Anyway, though, the World Championship just took place, and it was seriously amazing. Like, not only did it cover like the actual train card game, but there was also a Master Duel and Duel Links. It was so much fun to watch. But I'm going to be focusing more on the TCG/OCG side of the game, and history was made that night. The finals match was incredible, and history was made because the United States, has finally won the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. The finals was won by Paul Aronson using a Dragon Link deck, so big congratulations to Paul for being the first US player to ever win the World Championship. But it wasn't just that. The top 8 for that event was also dominated by all TCG players. Like, we just took over. But anyway, what I want to talk about is, what the heck happened? Like, how did the top 8 cutoff become what it is? The top 8 cutoff for the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship was comprised of 2 Mathematic decks, 2 Dragon Link decks, 2 Rika Sun Avalon decks, 1 Sword Soul deck, and 1 Vanquisher Soul deck. So out of all the possible decks that could have made it to the top, why were these decks the ones that made it? Well, let's talk about that for a sec. So first off, given that this is the World Championship, obviously the ban list for this event was a combine of both the TCG/OCG, and it hit a lot of good decks. But despite that, there was still a bunch of good players that took some of those decks that got hit and still did very well for them. Like, we still saw Branded, we saw Tier Limit, we saw Sprite Tri Brigade, Labyrinth. Heck, there was even one player that tried to play Purely. Heck, the deck that won Dragon Link, that deck was really hit the most, you can say, because a bunch of the bestial cards got hit. The Chaos Roller was banned for this event. Striker Dragon was at 1. Like, there was a lot of this deck got hit pretty hard, but it still managed to come out on top. And the deck that got second place at this event was a Sword Soul deck, and that deck was considered to be like tier 3 at best, but yet it still got second place. Well, how exactly did these decks get here? Well, there's a couple different reasons. First off, the decks that did make it to the top cut, like, a bunch of them were actually very, like, pretty combo heavy decks. Like, Mathematic was a pretty good combo deck. Heck, that could go into like Heat Soul and just draw into, like, get some hand traps and interrupt it. But they also have their trap card, which can let them exceed summon into a monster that could just rip a card out of the field, out of their hand. Then there was, of course, there's Vanquish Soul, which was hardly ever hits. Like, if anything, they just couldn't use a few new of their cards because they weren't releasing the TCG yet. Not to mention, not only can be staying quite consistent, but they have access to cards like There Could Be Only One and Dimension Shifter. Then there's a Rika Sun Avalon, another good combo deck, and that deck is like, we've seen how good Rika Sun Avalon is because one of the players that was playing that deck in this event actually won with it over in Europe. Rika Sun Avalon is a very popular and very strong deck over in the Europe region. Like, that deck can really put up some really good plays and also have some good ways to try to bypass the opponent's board. And of course, Dragon Link still also another good combo deck, and despite the fact that it got hit, we just saw how good the deck can still be. Like, they just need at least one good dragon to put out into the field, and they could start going off to the races. And one of the cool things is that we saw players that were playing Dragon Link playing 3 copies of Black Metal Dragon to search out Red Eyes Darkest Metal Dragon so they could keep comboing off. Like, that was a good play. Like, that was actually something that Dragon Link players did play before in the past, but hasn't seen really much play in Dragon Link for quite a while, but it came in really handy for this event. So I don't think there was a lot of players that were probably expecting that. I know I wasn't. And then finally, Sword Soul. Despite the fact that, well, first of all, Sword Soul is already a pretty good deck by itself. Like, they could just go into Chi Chao and Baronet on the very first turn, which is very impressive already. But some of the decks we know are really good in today's game pretty much, like, very much outplay that deck. Like, if they are able to get past that little board that Sword Soul has, well, there's might be a chance that he won't be able to come back from that. Like, sometimes they either have the fall off for next turn, or they just have a bunch of hand traps in hand to try to really stop the opponent. However, the Sorcerer deck for this event was very special because the player that piloted, Juan Pastor, actually main deck a bunch of going second cards like Dark Blue No More and Evenly Match. And that was a really good smart play. I don't think he tended to always go second, but he was prepared just in case. And in the chance he did get to go first in the very first game, well, he's playing a Sorcerer Tenyi deck, so he can still put up a really good, decent board all by itself. So if anything, it wasn't the fact that these top 8 decks were pretty much actually the best of the best for this particular event. It's just the players that were piloting and were either very good with the deck or came in with some really big brain plays and tech cards. And let me just quickly add, I was very much struggling with how the finals were turning out because, first of all, the Juan Pastor, not a US player, but he was playing a Sorcerer deck, a synchro deck. That's my thing. But then it's I was do I root for the player that's representing my country, or do I root for Sorcerer because I love Sorcerer? I love synchro decks. Why you gotta make me choose, Konami? Why? And trust me, there are a bunch of the decks that did not make it to top 8 card, but still some very good ones. Again, Labyrinth was probably one that was on a lot of people's radar, or considering how it's been popping off with those freaking virus cards. We'll get this topic going. Kind of just makes me happy, not because it's just full of TCG players, but it's just, again, a bunch of these decks are pretty much we can consider to be very low tier, like tier 3 at the very least, maybe even tier 2, but I will mostly say tier 3. And despite the fact they're being low on the tier list, they still performed very well at this event and dominated. If you said in my last video, couldn't any Yu-Gi-Oh deck beat any other deck? This just goes to show that it is possible. Again, the best example was when Juan Pastor's Sword Soul deck. I would consider that deck to be very low, much lower than compared to a bunch of these other decks that made top 8. Yeah, it still got second place because he came in prepared. He meta-gained and mind-gained his opponents by putting those going second cards into the main deck when he started the duel. Also, and then the finals match, as you may know, he did have to use a Nibiru to try to stop the Dragon Link player, and that was a bit risky move given the fact that Paul had a Hermetic Seal Heavenly Spheres on the field. It's most likely where that if he activated Nibiru, that sphere was going to trigger, but he had to take a risk because if he just did not do that and let Paul just keep both the spheres and the Bestial Lobelium, which most likely would have gotten the Branded Beast trap, he was going to look at 2 forms of disruptions. And if you saw Juan's hand, he only had the Nibiru and the Hara. So if he did manage to get into a Sorcerer monster, just one of those disruptions was more than enough to stop Juan's turn right then and there, and he most likely lost the next turn. So Juan had to take a chance. He had to take a risk with that Nibiru, and sadly, the cards were just not in his favor. But despite all that, the duels were really amazing. It was a fun finals to watch. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the World Championship since it just barely happened. It was super amazing. Again, duels were awesome. The players were very skilled. They knew how to play their decks, and they came prepared here for them, and they gave it their all, so it was a lot of fun. Anyways, thank you guys for just listening to me just go off and just want to talk about the World Championship, and I'm looking forward to the next World Championship, and hopefully I will be one of the contenders at the next World Championship. We'll see how the future plays out for me. Anyway guys, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have / had an awesome day.